reckon you brought your artist with you, Durk?
Yeah, for sure.
What's your artist name, bro?
King Von.
What's up, sir?
What's up with y'all?
Welcome.
How happy he is. He sacrificed. Look how happy he is.
This leaked audio clip got people talking. And now it's got folks wondering if Lil Durk was plotting way before King Von got caught lacking in Atlanta. Could it be that 6ix9ine was actually speaking facts the whole time? Once you hear what's being said in this clip, it's hard to brush things off as just coincidence. FBG Buddha, a known enemy of Von and the whole OTF camp, didn't hold back during an interview. And what he said? It hit hard. When someone outside the street speaks on beef, it don't carry much weight. But when your ops start connecting dots and spilling inside info like that on camera, that's a whole different kind of smoke. People close to the scene like FBG Butter and others believe Durk wasn't just watching Von rise, he was feeling threatened by it. Some even claim Durk might have let Von fall to boost his own position. Sounds wild, but think about it.
What Von had in the works, I don't know. But what I do know is all that happened.
Von was blowing up fast, out-rapping, outshining, and out-trending Durk in every direction. By the end of 2020, Von had the streets on lock with hits like Crazy Story, turning into instant anthems. His raw style and real-life bars had fans going crazy. And that kind of shine, it can turn brothers into rivals real quick. Von had that next up energy, no doubt about it. Meanwhile, Durk's spot at the top was starting to look shaky. So when Von lost his life right before dropping what could have been his biggest project, the timing had people's eyebrows raised high. And after the tragedy, Von's name didn't disappear. It popped up even more in Durk's tracks. Durk did show love in songs like Evil Twins, which came out before Von passed, and yeah, it painted a picture of how close they were. But after Von was gone, that track turned into something way bigger, like an anthem for their whole connection. Still, some folks couldn't help but wonder, was Durk truly honoring Von's memory or using his legacy to boost his own? After Von passed, Durk's album sales skyrocketed. That's when the rumors really started to stir. Was Von outshining Durk so much that it got under his skin? People started saying, was the student becoming bigger than the teacher? And if that's true, did it bother Durk deep down? Let's take it back. Durk did bring Von into the game. He signed him, put him on, and made sure Von got shine at every step. Like in 2019, when Durk hit the Breakfast Club, he made sure to shout Von out big time. They collabed, did interviews together, and always showed love to their roots. Old block heavy. But at some point, Von wasn't just rising, he was glowing. His name was hot in the streets, he was stacking cash, and most importantly, he had real respect from the trenches, not just from the industry crowd. In a city like Chicago, where street cred means more than chart numbers, that kind of pressure can mess with your pride, especially if you're used to running things like Durk was. And that's why some folks believe the shift in power between Von and Durk hit way deeper than it looked. Let's talk about Aki. Just like FBG Butter, he hinted that Durk was pulling strings behind the scenes and that Von was getting played. Even though Aki's not a favorite in the game, his comments got people thinking twice. And we can't ignore what 6ix9ine's been saying. He might be messy, but he's been loud about this since day one. On one of his IG lives, he straight up claimed Durk looked happy wearing Von's face on a shirt, like Von was a sacrifice, and Durk walked away clean. That's a crazy claim, but Tekashi kept that same energy every time he spoke on it. After Von's death, every time Durk dropped something new, like The Voice, 6ix9ine jumped in, saying Durk was using Von's name to boost his own music.
How happy he is. He sacrificed. Look how happy he is.
Now, yeah, some people say Tekashi's just chasing clout, talking betrayal and jealousy just to stay relevant. But when so many others are whispering the same thing, it starts to feel less like trolling and more like something real. It's always the ones closest to you that you gotta keep an eye on. But what is it about hip-hop and these so-called sacrifices? How often do they really happen? Before you shrug off the whole idea of Durk sacrificing Von as just wild internet gossip, understand this theory ain't just about Durk. It goes way deeper than him. In the gritty side of hip-hop, there's a long-standing belief that major success don't come without major loss. Some folks call it coincidence, but others, they call it sacrifice. When someone close to a rising artist dies, and then that artist suddenly hits another level, people start making connections. Look at Kanye West. After his mom Donda passed, fans started whispering. But Ye didn't exactly shut it down. In fact, he fed into it. In a recent paparazzi interview, Kanye flat out said his mom was sacrificed by the industry.
My mom ain't here. My mama was sacrificed. Me too. You understand?
Back then, he wasn't just grieving, he was blaming people. Then he dropped 808s and Heartbreak, switched up his whole sound, and leveled up again. These sacrifice theories stick because hip-hop ain't just about music. It's about pain, betrayal, and survival in the rawest form. And now, a few years after Von's death, Durk is fighting for his own life, not on the charts, but in court. Word is, his career might be on his last leg. Maybe Durk crossed the wrong folks, just like people say Von did. Because guess what? Karma's spinning the block, and Durk, he's not on top anymore. He's behind bars, and those charges heavy enough to bury a career. Last year, things got real for Durk. He got slapped with charges for conspiracy, gang leadership, and allegedly ordering a hit. But here's the wild part. The whole case ties straight back to the same war that took King Von out the game. Federal prosecutors now claim that Durk tried to get Quando Rondo hit, the same guy whose crew was involved when Von lost his life in 2020. Crazy, right? Let's rewind to that night in Atlanta. About 5 years ago now, Von and his squad pulled up outside a hookah lounge and just so happened to run into Quando Rondo and his team. Everybody already knew those two camps had tension, and when they crossed paths, it didn't take long before things popped off. Words got thrown, then fists started flying, and in seconds, it turned into a full-blown street brawl. Then, shots rang out. Fast, the whole scene went left. Off-duty security and nearby cops came running the second they heard gunfire. But it was too late. Von had already been hit multiple times during that first wave of bullets. Someone from Von's camp rushed him to the hospital, but the injuries were too serious. He didn't pull through. Not long after, Lil Tim, Quando's right-hand man, got arrested and labeled the shooter. For a while, he was the face of the case. But that night in Atlanta was just the start. Things didn't end there. Durk saw what went down, and according to the feds, he wasn't about to let it slide. Everyone in the streets knew Durk wanted payback for Von. And now, authorities are saying he actually moved on it. Durk allegedly called up a group of street soldiers and put a mission in motion. Not just talk, action. But here's the twist. Instead of hitting Quando Rondo, the shooters ended up taking out Quando's cousin, Lil Pab. It happened on August 19th, 2022 in Los Angeles. Quando was riding in a truck with his sister and Lil Pab when out of nowhere, gunmen pulled up and let off shots into the vehicle. Quando made it out alive, but his cousin didn't. Lil Pab was gone on the spot. Here's where it gets even crazier. The feds say Durk funded the whole thing using OTF money. He allegedly flew 5 guys from Chicago to LA, paid for their plane tickets, hotel rooms, and gave them everything they needed to pull it off. All traceable, all tied back to Durk. And it wasn't just about money. Durk reportedly promised them music perks too. Features, connections, even a possible place on the label. That's the kind of bait most street dudes can't say no to. The day before the hit, Durk's squad tracked Quando down at a hotel in LA. They sat on him, waited, then followed his truck to a gas station the next morning. That's when they struck. Bullets flew, but they missed the mark. Quando survived. Lil Pab didn't. But it didn't stop there, not even close. Durk pulled this off because OTF wasn't just a music label. It was moving like a full-blown criminal operation. Durk wasn't just rhyming about street life. He was calling shots from behind the scenes, sending hitters out while keeping his own hands clean. And that's exactly why the heat kept building after his first arrest. A few months later, the feds hit Durk with even more charges, stacking on a new indictment that included stalking resulting in death. Yeah, they got that serious. But it gets deeper. Prosecutors are now saying Durk was also behind another murder-for-hire situation, one that went down back in January 2022. This time, the target was a man named Stephen Mack. So who was Stephon Mack, and why would Durk want him gone? Mack wasn't just some random name. He was a major figure in the Chicago streets, running the Smashville crew deep inside Gangster Disciple territory. Real street power. Mack was taken out in broad daylight, outside the Youth Peace Center of all places. 2 gunmen rolled up in a car, let off shots, and left Mack dead on the scene. Cold and calculated. And guess what? Investigators believe this was revenge. Straight up get back for Durk's brother, D. Thang, who got killed outside a club in Harvey, Illinois back in 2021. Just like with Quando's cousin, Durk is accused of funding this hit too. They say he bankrolled the whole thing and ran it like a business move. Even with all these wild connections, Durk still hasn't been formally charged in the Stephon Mack case. Not yet, anyway. But the feds are still digging, and his name keeps coming up in court documents tied to his murder-for-hire case. As it stands, things are looking worse by the day, and it's only a matter of time before that Mack situation sticks to Durk's file too. Once Durk realized just how deep he was in it, he started moving real desperate. Locked up at the Metropolitan Detention Center in LA, Durk tried to outsmart the system, but the feds were watching. Since his own jail calls were heavily monitored, he started using other inmates' phone accounts to have secret convos off the books. He had 13 different people lined up, ready to let him use their lines, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. According to investigators, Durk also tried to tamper with witnesses while behind bars. And the numbers are crazy. He allegedly offered one key witness $1 million in cash, another $1 million straight from his label, and threw in $700,000 worth of real estate on top. That's a $2.7 million bribe just to keep mouths shut. But it didn't stop with money. Durk also sent out threats to witnesses and even their families. If the feds can prove all this, it's going to be very bad for him. Witness tampering alone is a major federal charge that could tack on years to his time. Durk ain't getting out on bond, and house arrest, that's off the table too. But even from behind bars, we recently heard from him. OTF member Brew Brew dropped a jailhouse phone call with Durk, and the clip cleared up a lot of the chatter that's been flying around. Durk wasted no time shutting down all the talk about him being in protective custody. The audio was shared by another OTF affiliate, and Durk made it crystal clear he's not getting any type of special treatment. He said himself he's in general population at the Metropolitan Detention Center in LA, not hidden away in some cushy protective unit. He even sounded annoyed that people were spreading that narrative. Durk said straight up, he's in a regular block, surrounded by other inmates, and he's being treated with respect. Through the call, Durk kept his energy high. He told fans he's holding his head up, doing fine, and doesn't need anything from nobody. The vibe, real calm. Like he's trying to put an end to the crazy stories being pushed out here. Bub co-signed everything, calling for Durk's release and saying he's just trying to get back to his kids. They pushed back on the drama, painting Durk as a man of honor who follows real street code, not someone chasing chaos. Durk made it loud and clear. Nobody is going to spin some he's hiding story on him. He's standing tall, no protective custody, no special perks, just facing his case head on. The bottom line, Durk wants folks to know he's not ducking anything. He's holding it down, and even locked up, he's still getting respect. Meanwhile, his legal squad is grinding hard behind the scenes, still claiming Durk is 100% innocent. They're building a multi-layered defense to knock down those heavy federal murder-for-hire charges. First off, they're going after the prosecution's use of Durk's lyrics as evidence. His lawyers argue that the bars were written months before the alleged crime, and they don't prove any criminal intent. They say bringing lyrics into court is unfair. It paints a picture that isn't real and twists creative expression into criminal motive. Second, they're pushing back on the witness tampering claims. Prosecutors say Durk made threats and tried to pay off key witnesses from jail, but his team says there's no solid proof. No voice recordings, no direct messages, just accusations without receipts. And when it comes to the government's so-called star witness, someone only identified in the legal docs as CHS1, Durk's lawyers are calling foul. They say he's a paid ex-gang member with a sketchy past and zero real credibility. They're arguing that the whole case leans too hard on his word, not hard facts. To support Durk's release, the defense came with a serious bond package. up to $4.5 million in cash, real estate, and business assets. They even offered full-time private security, 24/7 monitoring, and house arrest to prove Durk's not a danger or a flight risk. Durk's attorneys are holding their ground. They claim there's no direct evidence linking him to any of the hits. No calls, no payments, no messages. It's all circumstantial at best. They've even accused the feds of misleading the grand jury, especially when it comes to using Durk's lyrics as proof. His legal team is now trying to get the whole indictment tossed, calling it what it looks like, a modern-day witch hunt. Just another black artist being punished for his past lyrics. His family's spoken up too, saying the feds are stretching facts and inflating gang ties that don't even exist. But at this point, we all know this ain't just about music anymore. This is about control, power, and the image people want to protect, even if it means lives get lost in the process. And when you look back, it hits even harder. In 2024, Durk was untouchable. He wasn't just in the game, he was dominating it. He just won his first Grammy for All My Life with J. Cole, a track that became the biggest hit of his solo career. He had the streets on lock, was charting nonstop, and had the whole industry behind him. Durk's growth was undeniable. Repping Chicago hard, giving back to his hood, keeping OTF moving strong, and stacking $8 million from streams, tours, deals, and boss moves with his own label. But then came November 2024, and everything flipped. The shine faded, the headlines turned dark, and the image cracked overnight. Now Durk's sitting behind bars, waiting to find out if his next stage will be a courtroom or a comeback tour. If you made it this far, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more deep dives just like this. You don't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.